Welcome back to the Broadcast Ops Playbook. This show is for teachers building student led broadcast and media programs and trying to do it without the chaos, burnout, or juggling 10 different tools. I'm your host, Taylor Siebert. In the last episode, we talked about roles, giving every student a defined job they own, not just a name on the whiteboard, but a real responsibility with a real standard for your program. And if you did that work, you're ahead of most programs. But what we found, what happens next is a student doesn't check the battery of the camera. The stream drops 10 minutes in. Parents are texting the AD, and the AD is texting you, the teacher. And you've got two choices: fix it yourself and make it look seamless, like nothing ever happened, or let the student feel the weight of what just happened. Most teachers fix it, including myself. I've been there every time. Not because they want to, because the broadcast is live, the community's watching, alumni, and it feels like you can't afford to let it fail. But here's the thing: every time you fix it, you're teaching your students that you will always fix it. So today we're talking about accountability, not punishment to your students or policing, micromanaging. It's a system where you hold students accountable to the standard, and you're the last person to hopefully step in. So let's get into it. Here we are, episode 5. We are deep into the systems and building of student-led broadcast programs. We are so thankful you're still with us. And episode 4, if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that in 1, 2, and 3. But if you're just joining us for the first time, we are thankful. Last episode, we talked about defining roles. And today, we're tackling the thing that makes roles actually stick, which is accountability. Ush, what have you been hearing on that from teachers?
Yeah, it's awesome that we're recording when we are, because just 2 days ago I was at a school for some postseason basketball, and I was talking to the advisor, and her students were coming up. They were getting ready. It's 20 minutes before the game, and she said, "So where's this student?" And they were like, "Oh, he was sick." Full air quotes, just going at it, like, because she's like, "What do I give him for a grade? He's not here." And she's like, "If he's truly sick, I can't just give him a 0, like if it's an excused absence. But if they're just pretending to be sick, then I should give them a 0, because if they didn't want to show up because of this." And I was like, "Yeah, that's a good point. We're actually talking about that in a couple of days." So I said, "Thank you for." I didn't tell her at the time, but I typed a little note in my phone. I said, "I'm going to bring this up."
Well, and that is the struggle, right? The broadcast program is so different from a regular classroom. Yeah, a student could go homesick and miss, math class, and they'll have to make up that work. How do you hold them accountable when it comes to broadcasting? And they're not going to get that game back. They do have another game tonight, and so we'll see if that student shows up. But I like to think of it like a bad essay goes in the folder, and the student learns from it. A bad broadcast is going to go out, and if a role is missing from that broadcast, a camera person is going out to every parent, fan, alumni watching, especially this time of the year where we're recording this in the postseason. So the stakes are high, and it's so public, and it's such a big deal. And that pressure, we feel like when we talk about it, makes it really hard to step back as a teacher and let students feel those consequences of not following through, or in this case, not even showing up. And so that's the tension we're going to be addressing today. It might be a little uncomfortable for you. I know it is for me, because I'm the king of coming in and trying to be the hero and fix everything. Hoosier can attest to that. You feel good, right?
Yeah, I do it too, and sometimes I have to remember it. We have state basketball coming up where we're going to have a bunch of student crews. They're running everything, and to practice what we preach, and to really be like, "Hey, try to troubleshoot this on your own." It's going to be really hard for me to not step in right away, because you know the solution a lot of times, and it's really hard to watch people try it wrong. But I have to remember that especially me being a lot closer to high school and actually doing this than you are, Taylor. Um,
Hey, now,
it's
thanks.
had to do it.
Yeah,
Um,
not in the
but I
notes.
remember,
A good one.
right, not in the notes. But I remember being that student who was like, "Oh, how do I do this?" And I remember getting no help, not none at all, until it was absolutely critical, and I just couldn't figure it out. And I'm a Hobbit and Lord of the Rings fan, so the line I always tell myself is no help came from the elves that day, nor any day since. Little inside joke, but if you're a fan, you'll get it.
Well, it got you this job, so I guess maybe a blessing there. And but let's talk about that for a little bit before we get into the why. Like, why do teachers struggle with letting go? And let's be real about that. You as a teacher, you've defined roles, students know their jobs, but when game day comes and something breaks, like the example you already shared, and we have other examples, a student doesn't show up, the teacher's got to step in, and we get it. Like, they're yeah, if a student's sick, like literally the teacher's going to have to step in. I've seen that firsthand with Marcus, where I think it was probably 5 minutes before the football game that I was at with him, you could physically see the student was struggling, and him and Marcus had a conversation. He's like, "You should probably go home." And so the kid left. So then Marcus had to change the whole night of what that looked like, and he had to direct. He had to be the director, and moved a student over, and they were able to adjust. So we get that. I don't think that's what we're talking about today. This is more of, the students who are there, they know their job, and they literally can't function because they don't know what to do if the battery dies, and they look at the teacher. So that's, you know how do you adjust the audio mix yourself? And you typically cover for the student a lot of times, and in that moment, you save the broadcast because it is the right call. But what happens is you've also just taught every student on that crew that if they wait long enough or just kind of sit there, and struggle long enough, the teacher is going to handle it. And we've seen that become a recipe for disaster. And it's not laziness on the student's part. It's a pretty normal response to a system that kind of rewards that, where it's like, yep, I know they're going to come and rescue me, instead of you know, ha- teaching them in that moment. And we've seen that a lot of teachers do that, and it's really great. And sometimes the student just doesn't get it, but you've seen this firsthand. Who's Can you paint the picture for us on what this looks like on game day?
Well, yeah, I think one of the things that we have to remember, and me and Taylor get this. So if you're a teacher sitting here, we know you're busy, and we know that on game day, the broadcast might not be your only responsibility, especially if you are technically inclined. They're probably having you set up the video board and do music and all this stuff. And I had a phone call the other day with Rob Goff. He's our teacher in Kearney, Nebraska, and they have the Luxido floor projection system. And he called me and
Fancy.
he said, Hoosier, I've got this problem, and I'm calling you not because I don't know how to fix it, but by the time I figure it out, it's going to take too much time, and my Luxido system's broken. So I really need to fix that. So I just need you to give me the quick fix for this. That way I can move on to the next thing. And so
Mm.
we get it. I field calls like that all the time. Hey, we're running up to the last minute. We just need this to work now. You can teach us more about it later. So I get that. But it kind of reminds me as I was listening to him, because I mean, he didn't even really say goodbye on the phone call. It was, here's the fix. He's like, all right, I'm
Fix
on to the
it.
next thing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
luckily me and Goff were good friends that took no offense to it. I was just like, the phone hung up and I'm like, oh, I guess my part in this is done. I guess I've helped. But it to me, that if you want to really paint a picture or a motion picture, animated motion picture, Inside Out 2, yes, I watched it. Yes,
Same.
I almost, yeah. Well, you have younger kids, so it
I
makes a little
do.
bit more
I
sense
do.
for you to watch it. I just like film. And I remember when the anxiety character had the anxiety attack. It's just a whirlwind. I'm like, that's what a lot of people feel like in live production going up until the game starts and then throughout the broadcast until it's over. It's just one storm swirling mess of there's so many things that got to get done, and so we get it. But if you haven't gotten to that point, don't freak out. It'll all be okay. If you get to that point, it is fun after the fact. It's not always fun during it.
The hard truth is when these things happen, when a teacher comes in to save the day every time, it's not just a one-time rescue. It becomes a pattern. And we were talking about, I have 4 kids, and my wife sees a pattern with 3 boys in the house that they don't put the seat down every time they go to the bathroom, and that bothers her. And so how do you teach them that instead of putting the seat down every single time and closing the lid like they should as responsible young boys? And I'm failing as a father by not teaching them that either. But we were talking about that, and the more I step in to do that for them, the less they feel the weight of that, of their mom's wrath. And so they need to embrace that. They need to experience failure. And we've got some really great examples. And we're going to share with you that real classroom broadcast examples that can give you maybe peace of mind to go, yeah, I could probably let go of that next time, like baby steps, right? With accountability. And we're going to share we have a resource again for this episode that we're going to share with you that you can actually build out an accountability chart. So stick with us so you can get access to that at the end of the episode. So let's talk through kind of 3 things teachers maybe get wrong about accountability and why maybe they get stuck there. So there's 3 beliefs that keep programs in the cycle from our observation. And we think maybe you're holding on to maybe one or maybe all 3 or none. You be the judge of that. But we're going to at least put them out into the world for broadcast teachers. And number 1 is, if I don't step in, things will fall apart. I've experienced this. This is going to be a huge challenge for me next week when the stakes are real high for you and I at state basketball. And sometimes it's just easier in the short term to go in and fix that and really not have time to explain to the student what we actually did, because you're live. And so if you stop fixing things mid broadcast, the audio might be kind of rough for that game, or a camera angle might be off. Something might get missed. But here's the question we think you should ask yourself. Do you want it to be messy now while students learn, or messy for the rest of the season because they never had to figure it out? And there's time to do that after the game. We have lots of schools who reflect on their events. I know you have seen teachers struggle with this. Jordan Burns had a great example moment that he shared with us that I'd love for you to share.
Yeah. Well, and just quickly before I do that, sometimes what I even do is let the student make the mistake, like at state basketball, for example, and then let's say the audio's off. I'll go to my person in charge of that and I'll say, how does the audio sound? I'll ask them a question. Because they might not, in their brain, they might not even be thinking about how it sounds. They're so focused in on what they're doing. And so when you can ask a question like that, or, you ask your director, hey, how many times have you gone to your floor camera? Because I hear the floor camera say like, oh, they're never putting me on screen. And so you ask some prying questions, and then that kind of makes their brain go like, oh, right. And so for Jordan Burns, he's had a couple things that he shared with us, and we know he listens, which is why we're calling him out on this or sharing these examples. But they had a camera die during the broadcast. And 2 things with that is, if the student had a checklist, maybe that wouldn't have happened. Maybe if it needed to be plugged in, it would have been plugged in, or there would have been extra batteries sitting around. Hey, let's check on this. But once the camera died, what was the first thing that the student did? Well, they called over Jordan and they said, Mr. Burns, my camera died. And I can just imagine, just because we've talked with Jordan enough, like, okay, so what do you want to do? Like, what should you do? Like, okay, your camera died. What do you think you should fix? What's the problem? And I think even his words were, yeah, you need to ask one of your fellow camera operators first and just see if there is some shared knowledge between all of you camera operators and hopefully all of you students working the broadcast, that if something's dead, it means it doesn't have any battery or power. So what should we probably look at? Well, is it plugged into the power? And if it's not, does it need a new battery? That easiest troubleshooting steps. It's kind of like the what's wrong with your computer? Is it even turned on? Right?
Yeah.
You know, that
Restart it.
kind of checklist. So
Have you restarted it?
have you restarted? Do you even have network? Do you even know your password? Like all of those things that I get asked a lot as a smart technology person, which is a blessing and a curse. But yeah, so to finish up on the story down at Nixa is the student then asked another camera operator and they fixed the problem. So was Jordan needed at all? Not really. He just had to help guide in that scenario. Hey, ask someone else. They probably know. And now that they've got that set up, that's how the troubleshooting now goes for the Nixa Live Broadcasting Club. If something's broken and I don't know how to fix it, I'm going to ask another one of my peers. If they don't know how to fix it, I'm going to ask one of our student leaders in the leadership group. And if they can't figure that out, now we're going to go talk to Mr. Burns. We're going to see if we can figure it out. But we're not going to Mr. Burns until we've exhausted all of our other options.
Yep. And I'm looking at my second screen because we've built that in the resource. And so if you're listening to this, going through this, you'll see 4 different levels, right? Same role here is level 1. Level 2 is the different role, student leader, teacher. We're going to dive into that a little bit. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. We kind of call these myths, but just like 3 things that maybe you're getting wrong on accountability. So that was number 1. If I don't step in, things will fall apart. Number 2, holding students accountable means being the bad guy or the mean person. And oftentimes, especially in a setting like this, you're asking students to come after school to help with these events. And so you're trying to be as kind as possible, but also, hey, we want this to be a really great product. And so sometimes accountability can feel like micromanaging or can create conflicts with the relationships you've worked really hard with the students. But it's not punishment, it's clarity if you frame it the right way in how you communicate it. I know that as a parent, if I'm, I can react in a certain way to my child when I don't think they're doing it the right way, or I can go, hey, let me teach them how to do this and take it a little bit slower instead of yelling at them. That's a daily battle. And I'm sure you as a teacher are the same way, like, no, just figure it out. Like, and you don't, that's hard in the moment. And we understand that. We have another great example from Jordan where this I actually shared on X this last week and got over 15,000 views from this story. So hopefully you can tell it as good as AI helped me write that.
Well, you're kind of making me wish that I told you just to take this segment and tell the
Well,
story.
I guess I could have, but go ahead. You tell it.
Oh man, yeah, you're not stepping in to help me here. Is that what you're doing now? You're
Already
just gonna let me?
Yeah, go for it.
It's written. Oh,
we both heard the story.
Yeah, I've heard the story a few times. Again, we go down to Nixa, Missouri. Great place. Jordan Burns and his students have built a great program. And again, none of this is a slight. These are just learnings. And we want to pass them on so that it doesn't happen to you.
Yeah.
Or if this does happen, maybe this is a way that you can react. But for the Nixa live streams, they have sponsors, as a lot of our programs do, which is fantastic. Connect with the community. And in the agreement with the sponsor, says, hey, we're going to run your ad X amount of times. For this example, let's say 4. Just throwing out a number. And the sponsor has a copy of that agreement. And the school or the broadcast team has a copy of that as well. Well, the sponsor was watching the broadcast, and when they finally tallied up how many times their commercial had been played, they said, uh-oh, they were 1 short. They only played our ad, again, for the example, 3 times. And so instead of, raising a big fuss because they get it, it's high school, but they still wanted accountability. They still want, their ad and
They're
agreement to
paying
be
for the full ad
exactly.
spots. Yeah.
And so they went to talk to Mr. Burns, Jordan, and they said, "Hey, we noticed that you were one ad play short for us." And so instead of covering for the students, Jordan said, "Let's have a little fun with this because this could be interesting to see how this turns out.
Love it.
But let's make them feel the weight of missing that commercial. Let's They were the one that was supposed to check off that fourth box and they never did. And so they set up a meeting. Sponsor sat across from the student and kind of asked the student for a little reasoning why, but also said, here's why we care that our ad gets played, because this affects our business. This could affect the revenue that we bring in. And so, really, a great real world accountability situation for that student to kind of have to sit and face the angry boss or the angry people on the other side and say, okay, I apologize. Obviously, it's not great to make a mistake, and then provide the remedy for going forward. And both sides came to a conclusion, and then they kept working together, and all was fine. But I guarantee that student hasn't missed an ad play since then.
Yeah, and what an amazing opportunity. And like you said, Jordan played it up with the sponsor and said, "Hey, I would like to make this a learning experience, which is going to be way more impactful than any grade or points they get in their program." They got on that. They did the meeting. They owned it. I think he had some other maybe it was the whole crew took responsibility for it. But what an amazing real. We always talk about real world, like that. Legit is the definition of real world experience. And not to shame them, but just it's the reality of this, and we want to make it educational at all times. Number three, we're going to move through so we can get to our four steps to build accountability that sticks. But number three that maybe you get wrong is the punishment piece. Accountability means punishment, and most teachers hear that word and immediately think grades and write-ups and consequences. And that can be one version you may need to hold them accountable to. But maybe it's not the best version that works in broadcasting. We believe peer accountability and natural consequences, like that story we just told, is a much better way to hold them accountable. And then when students see that mistakes affect the broadcast, and when the director notices maybe the camera wasn't set up right or they missed the shot, the group reviews the broadcast and sees the gap. You let them see maybe the gaps instead of you having to point them out. And again, asking that question in that way, like, hey, how many times have you gone to the floor camera? You're holding them accountable to the standard as the director. So I know you've got maybe some examples to share on this, Hooj, and then we'll keep on moving.
Yeah, well, I think too, I've thought of this reframe, and so I'm going to give myself the direct quotation because I didn't hear it from anyone else. I feel like I'm entitled to do that.
Let's do it.
Punishment should come from breaking rules. And rules are different than standards, right? So the rules, let's take a typical class. The rules say that you need a C grade to pass. Otherwise you don't get to pass a class. That's a rule. There is a punishment if you don't pass. The standard for you as a student is that you're working for an A plus. A standard is something that you are, for lack of a better word, striving for. Ever since you named the company Strive, I'm like, Taylor, that's one of my favorite words.
Works.
But that's how we should think of standards and accountability. Is yes, if they break a rule, there needs to be something, a punishment of some sort, whatever seems fit and appropriate for you, your students, and your situation. However, if they just fail to uphold the standard, then that needs to be more reflection, pure accountability. Let's work together. How can we make this better? How can we make sure that, we don't accidentally cut to a camera that's not focused on anything, right? Because it happens. Mistakes happens. And accountability is there to not shame you, but just to, allow you to reflect and allow you to get better. And that's why we have people that hold us accountable in our lives, because we need that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's important if we can start getting this, group of who are going to be young adults sooner than they would like to be, to learn accountability. I think that's excellent.
Did we hit the standard or not? Or didn't we? And then we've built a scorecard as a broadcast education program. One of our tools that we've created is a scorecard to help you define that, like what is good. And so we talked about that last time, in defining on the roles. Just the overall broadcast can help you hold the students accountable. Like, hey, we didn't hit the standard. There was a lot of misses based on the scorecard that we all agreed we are grading our broadcast on. Right. So good stuff. So those are the three things maybe you get wrong when you hear the word accountability. So that leads us to the 4 steps to build accountability that sticks. So how do I do this in my program? And we've named those. So let's talk about how to actually build this with the worksheet that we're going to be giving you. And Hoosier's going to take you through these 4 steps. It's 4, right? I messed up last week. You didn't shorten it to 3?
Three and a bonus. Three and a bonus. We counted the 4th one as a bonus.
I forgot we did that.
I know. We even talked about that in our pre-recording meeting, but that's okay.
I see bonus now.
I know you listen to me most of the time. Step number 1 is to build an escalation path. That's a big word. Really, okay. It's when you have a problem. It's what we described about when the camera was broken. When you have a problem, basically it's troubleshooting steps. What is your path to solving problems? Outline that for your class. Make sure that, and again, we have a PDF that you can fill out with your students so that everyone's on the same page. And I'd even take one copy.
I'm going to show it. Yeah, I'll just show it.
Well, that's good. Yeah. So the idea is, what do you do? And so we kind of have 4 levels as we talked through the Nixa example. But level 1 is, let's say you're a camera operator. You're going to ask a peer that has the same role as you, right? Hey, do you know what's wrong? Especially if you're on the same piece of equipment. You have the same kind of level of knowledge. Then level 2 is, hey, maybe my camera's broken, so I need to talk to the director. Maybe the director knows. Usually directors, if they are going through a program, have started out as camera operators and have an advanced knowledge of it. And then go to your student leaders who still might be doing a different role, but they are students that are kind of there that have done just about everything in your program.
The upperclassmen, so they should have typically,
junior, senior level.
Yep.
Yeah, usually have a pretty good idea of every part of the broadcast, not just a singular role. They know how it all works together. And then level 4, or as we put it, the last resort, is you, the teacher, because it really works well when students follow that. And again, it takes reliance off of you, so it can save you time. Real quick example of this also that I'd love to mention is, and it's a post in Future Ready Educators, but at McCool Junction, Trey Perry is one of our teachers, and he actually took a whole month off last year because he and his wife had welcomed a new child. And so he spent some time at home, and so all the broadcasts were led by the students. And whenever there was a problem, they went through that checklist. And then instead of Trey being the last resort, he actually put my name and my phone number in there.
Oh, there you go.
So, speaking of people wanting support,
we got to. We're leaving that. We're leaving it.
Yeah,
I had my phone.
They didn't have a caller ID. All of the people we work with that we know we need to support, they have caller ID. That was not one of them. We didn't just hang up on a customer. 9 times out of 10, it's spam. Anyway. So what are the odds I say somebody calls me and then somebody calls me? And so anyway, Trey, I was the last resort. That way Trey could spend time with his family. Mm-hmm. But even when he was back this year, I got to go to one of their games. They played my team of Sutton. And just to see him as a teacher sitting in the stands with wife and kids enjoying the game, because all of the work was done ahead of time to prepare his students and to train them so that they can run independently. Like I say, the coach of the basketball team is not out on the court playing with the with the athletes. It's the 5 athletes out there. Same with your broadcast. If it's 8 roles or 7 roles, they're the ones doing the work. Sometimes you as a teacher have to hop in, but we'd like to get it to where you don't have to. And this is part of it.
So sit down and map this out and tell the students, here's who you go to before you come to me. Otherwise, if you don't, they will assume and they'll just keep coming straight to you. We understand not every crew maybe has the luxury of having these different levels. So modify it for yours. Maybe you're just 1 degree from separation from the student. There's just 3 steps, right? But that you're just not always the go-to would be really great, no matter what size of crew you've got. Okay, step 2.
Yeah, this is going back into the standards versus rules idea. Use standards, not just rules. I wrote down a line: just do your best doesn't cut it. You can't just tell your students do your best. You have to define what that is. And we talked about that, like Taylor mentioned earlier in another episode. And when you can define the standards, you're saying the camera work needs to be framed correctly and follow the action smoothly. That's a standard. The rule says don't leave your camera unattended because somebody else might come up there and start messing with it. Or what if it falls off the tripod? There have been many people who have called me, said, hey, I need help. Our camera just fell off the tripod. Now it doesn't work. I'm like, well, I can't do much 50 miles away from you, but how did it fall off? Well, we don't know. Nobody was next to it. That's a problem. Yep. So that's a rule. Rules create avoidance. Standards create a target for what students need to hit.
Love that.
And again, there's a lot that students are learning in a day, right? I think of myself as an adult. I get overloaded and I don't even have a lot to really think or care about. I'm really targeted, but still there's a lot that goes on, information overload. And so think about the students who, most of the time a game happens, it's after a day of school.
Yep.
And so they've spent, 8 different class periods during the day, plus maybe something real quick after school before finally getting to the game. And then they're thinking about, okay, once the game's over, it's going to be like 9 o'clock, and now I got to go home and I got to do my homework so I can be ready for school all over again the next day. It's a lot. And so that's why having these standards written out in some place that a student can consistently check or constantly check and be like, all right, here's what I need. Here's what I need to do. That's why we really like them.
Love it. Okay, moving right along. Step 3. Which one is that? And then we'll get to the bonus.
Yeah, step 3 is let students feel the real consequence. So just like Jordan having his students sit down in front of that advertiser, they felt the weight of that situation. And I'm actually going to pull a quote from a book. This is the first quote pulled from a book with the actual book sitting in front of me.
Yeah, you're citing.
Yeah, it's called Do Hard Things. The foreword's by Chuck Norris. I don't know if it's that Chuck Norris or a different one.
I think it is.
But I always thought that was cool.
Go with that.
I think it is. But this is a book that I read as I was starting to get involved in broadcasting. My mom bought it for me. Nice. It was just good for me anyway as a young adult or young teenager. But I wrote word on my sticky note saying I need to read this. And I'm kind of pulling it a little out of context, but hang with me here. The plane's going to land. It'll be okay.
Let's do it.
So there was an email received by these writers in July of 2007. And the email said, I had my own idea of fun, which was too much recreational reading, too much playing video games, too much of my own thing. Sounds like me. To this day, I've never held a job and I'm still living at home. My lack of real life skills has had some very negative consequences to a relationship that is very important to me. Okay, how does this fit? This is an exaggerated example of what could be happening to your students if they're not given the opportunity to use real life skills. They can either get to college, be completely unprepared,
Yep.
or be involved in something, some club, group, organization in their time in high school and not have learned that what they do has a consequence. And consequences have negative connotation. There's also positive side to consequences, right?
Yep.
I worked my tail off to get good at this, and the positive consequence is that Taylor's like, well, now we kind of have to hire you. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. Forced
yeah,
our hand.
I spent so much time, doing this that they're like, okay, guess this is what you get to do now. So that's a positive consequence. But if I would have gone the other way and still done this, but not cared, not put any effort in, I don't know where I'd be. Right. And so that's a consequence. And so students need to feel it. If they did a great job, let them feel the praise of people saying, hey, broadcast looked great. If they messed up and people are calling you and telling you, hey, it didn't look great, sit them down and have if it needs to be a little heart to heart, have a little heart to heart conversation that says, hey, we're providing a service and the people that we're serving, this is their feedback. What is the feedback? It's not looking great. Okay, how do we fix it?
Yeah, what's the
How
plan
do we set
to move forward?
how do we set higher standards to fix that?
Yep. Fantastic. And that is the power of going live with a broadcast program and involving students, because as I always quote Dr. Brandon Mowinkle, streaming the student broadcast program is the most public thing they do as a school. And so the stakes are high, and letting your students kind of feel that, I think, can engage more students to want to be a part of that, because there's, outside of sports and other clubs and activities can do this too, but it's just so unique, and that's why we're so passionate about it. It's because we've experienced that, and we want others to as well, and understand why this is so important. Okay, I love bonus / step 4 as well. You want to share a little bit about reflections?
Yeah. The bonus step 4 is building a rhythm in your classroom of reflections. Everyone says hindsight is 2020. It is, which is why you should be doing reflections, right? You need to create a loop, right? We prepare, we go out, we do the thing, we come back and we say, how did we do? Sports teams do this with watching film. Companies do this. We do this as a company where we have weekly meetings, monthly meetings, quarterly meetings where we are reflecting on what we've done and what worked and trying to continue to do more of what worked and less of what didn't work, right? That's we've learned a lot of those lessons, at least since I've started working. And that's only been about 3 years. So Taylor, you've been doing this a lot longer. I'm sure you've got lots of reflections.
Yes. They're all up here. No, now they're all documented, which is great, which is what we encourage you to do, is to document those sessions, right?
Yeah, and use them as a way to continually push how great you can make your broadcast be. I'm of the mindset that you're either getting better or you're not. And sometimes even moving backwards, right? In the business world, you're either growing or you're shrinking. And that's your broadcast team. That should be a driving piece that says, hey, we need to be continually getting better, because if we don't, we're just kind of wasting our time here, right? Like, what are we trying to do that's better? What are we trying to do that's new? And the beautiful thing is, there's not a limit to how far you can push it, but you will get this natural reset button every year, right? And I'm sure this is what a lot of you teachers are probably feeling is, great, we got this group really well trained, and now they're gone. My goodness, this is why we want these systems in place. This is the thing that you are now starting to realize is taking your time, is that you're having to start fresh every year. Well, how do teams do it? How do basketball teams or football? Well, there's a system, there's a pathway that everyone's following. There's a playbook that everyone knows all of the plays, And sure, you might install a new play one year and then that's in the rotation until you don't use it anymore. But this is what we want to do as a broadcast team is we want to start building in these things. And when you have your reflections written down, and this is where I would use the power of AI. I don't know if we've ever actually told you to use AI yet in this podcast. But me and Taylor are huge believers in it. So you're going to hear more now that I've kind of opened the floodgates.
Users, yes.
Yeah.
Believers and users.
Yeah, believers and users. And AI, like, upload all of those PDFs of the reflections from students and have AI consolidate it for you and say, all right, here's all that we learned this year. Review it with your students at the end of the school year and be like, oh, we learned a lot. We didn't start out so great. We got better at the end. Fantastic. And then keep that master document of the year. That way, when the next year rolls around, you can say, all right, here's what we learned from last year. If you weren't along for it, we'll kind of help catch you up. Let's not make these same mistakes again if we can avoid it.
Well, and you are queuing up, which I forgot to tell you I was going to announce it anyway, but you queued it up so well that we are formally announcing in this episode, Monday. We'll put some details in the show notes, but we are building our first ever sprint and accelerator for teachers to build a broadcast program that survives graduation. We're going to take you through the steps live with us this spring. So you have to do this, and it does cost, not very much, but we feel so there's a free PDF that's going to be a workbook that you can do it on your own, or if you want to do it with us and others, we feel like there's value in that, and we want you to commit to that. And so we're going to be doing that in April. So be on the lookout for the sign up for that on how to build your student leadership program. And you have to do it now. Do not wait till summer and fall to figure out, oh yeah, what did we do all last summer? Do it now while you have those seniors, those upperclassmen, so you can keep that momentum going once August hits and you don't have to hit reset. So be on the lookout for that. How to build a broadcast program that survives graduation coming soon. And Hoosier will be running that. We're calling it a sprint over 3 weeks in April. And so, yeah, let's close this episode out. I think one of the things, if you hear when you're doing these reflections, you hear and you're watching the footage and you hear a student say, yeah, I was, and they're the camera operator, I was pretty shaky on that. That's accountability without the teacher having to say it. And that is the goal. So accountability isn't about being the enforcer. It's about building layers so that your students understand that peer-to-peer first, student leadership second, and teacher as the last resort. And when you build that path and define the standards like we just described and let students feel those consequences, you stop being the one that hopefully has to remind them and check and fix everything. Yeah, there's going to be a time and place where you do, and new stuff will pop up, but at least start to build those habits and patterns. And remember this, timing matters. If you're just coming and listening to this after your winter sports season, you just lived through that, I guarantee it. And you know where things broke. Jordan actually in Future Ready Educators is sharing his SOPs with you guys. So you can do this with your students. It's a great time to do that. It's a perfect time to do that while it's fresh. Do not wait to do that. Everyone's like, spring's so busy, so many different things. Take the time to put in that effort now so that when you come around to fall, you guys are ready to go. So sit down, draw that chart, map it out. You can get the PDF. That is your action item to do that, step one, and it will change everything in your program. So I already showed the chart a little bit. You can go get that at strive.education/accountability and go and download that and let us know. Share it in Future Ready Educators if you did it or if you modified it like Jordan did. We want to see how you are building your path to accountability and your chart for your program, because we realize, I just told this to a new school earlier today, we build custom plans and programming for each school because every program is different. They are not the same. And so we want to help you. This is a starting point, and we're giving away for free. We also have a way that you can work with us even more through our paid programs, our broadcast education program. So you can check that out. in the show notes as well. All right, Hoosh, thank you. We're off to state basketball the next 2 weeks. We will hopefully get a next episode. We have finally arrived. Episode 6 will be all about gear. It took us 6 episodes, and I think that tells you how important it is, but not so important, because you got to have a plan. You got to have a system, standards, and roles in place before we get to all the fancy gear. But that will be episode 6, and we will see you then.